In the bustling streets of a city, amidst the noise of passing cars and the chatter of daily life, a tiny, fragile puppy lay helplessly on the sidewalk. His condition was heartbreaking. When the rescuer found him, his body was devoid of fur, and his skin was inflamed and irritated from relentless scratching. The puppy's eyes, filled with a mix of pain and fear, caught the attention of a kind-hearted rescuer who couldn't turn away. What would happen next to the poor puppy? Would he be adopted? Be sure to keep watching. The rescuer gently picked up the trembling puppy and placed him in their car. He was too weak to resist, but seemed to understand that help had arrived. Without wasting a moment, the rescuer rushed him to the nearest veterinary hospital, where his fight for survival began. At the hospital, the veterinarians were shocked by the extent of the tick infestation. The tiny parasites had burrowed deep into the puppy's skin, including his ears, causing immense discomfort and risk of severe infections. Ticks not only cause physical harm, but are also carriers of dangerous diseases. The first step was to relieve the puppy of this burden. The rescuer, committed to giving him a chance at life, purchased medications designed to eradicate the tick infestation. Slowly, the veterinarians began removing the ticks, ensuring they left no room for these parasites to harm the puppy further. Despite the challenges, there was a glimmer of hope. Tests revealed that the puppy was negative for distemper and adenovirus, two highly contagious and potentially fatal diseases in dogs. Distemper is a viral disease that attacks multiple body systems, causing respiratory, gastrointestinal, and neurological symptoms. Similarly, adenovirus can lead to infectious canine hepatitis, a severe condition affecting the liver. Being free of these diseases significantly increased the puppy's chances of recovery. However, further tests revealed another hurdle. The puppy tested positive for Ehrlichia and Anaplasma, two blood parasites transmitted by ticks. These diseases can cause fever, anemia, lethargy, and, in severe cases, life-threatening complications if left untreated. Ehrlichia targets white blood cells, weakening the immune system, leaving the puppy vulnerable to infections. Anaplasma invades platelets, often leading to blood clotting issues and increased susceptibility to bleeding disorders. The veterinarians assured the rescuer that while these conditions were serious, they were treatable with timely intervention. The medical team immediately devised a treatment plan to address the puppy's needs. First, they focused on stabilizing him, ensuring he felt as comfortable as possible. Warm blankets, gentle touches, and a quiet environment helped soothe his nerves. The cornerstone of his treatment included multiple doses of Virbagen, an advanced medication known for its effectiveness in managing viral and immune-related conditions in dogs. Combined with supportive care, antibiotics, and proper nutrition, the puppy began responding well to the treatment. Day by day, his condition improved. His skin started to heal, and tiny patches of fur began to grow back. The puppy's once weak body gained strength, and his bright eyes revealed a newfound spark of life. Weeks turned into months, and the puppy underwent a remarkable transformation. His fur returned, soft and shiny, a testament to his resilience and the care he received. His playful spirit began to shine through as he wagged his tail enthusiastically, showing gratitude to those who had saved him. The hospital staff and the rescuer were overjoyed to see his progress. This once fragile puppy was now full of energy and ready for the next chapter of his life, a forever home. The rescuer began searching for the perfect family to adopt him, ensuring he would be loved and cared for as he deserved. His story emphasizes on the critical role of rehabilitation. Rehabilitation is more than just medical intervention. It is a holistic approach to giving animals like this puppy a second chance at life. His story illustrates the critical importance of timely care, compassion, and persistence in transforming lives. When the puppy was found on the sidewalk, his condition seemed dire, with no fur to shield his inflamed skin and ticks burrowing into his fragile body. Without immediate intervention, he would have likely succumbed to the pain, infections, or diseases caused by his tick infestation. Rehabilitation began with a simple but profound act: his rescuer's decision to pick him up, signifying that his life mattered. This single act set in motion a chain of care involving veterinarians, medications, and round-the-clock attention, all tailored to his recovery. Rehabilitation not only targets the immediate physical ailments, but also addresses deeper, underlying issues that may not be visible. For this puppy, the discovery of Ehrlichia and anaplasma highlighted the silent but dangerous effects of the tick infestation. Blood parasites like these can weaken an animal's immune system and cause chronic health issues if left untreated. The treatment, though rigorous, was a testament to how rehabilitation focuses on more than just survival. It aims to restore health and vitality. The use of advanced medications like Verbagen played a crucial role in combating these conditions, enabling the puppy to regain strength and overcome his physical challenges. Beyond physical recovery, rehabilitation is vital for emotional and psychological healing. This puppy's initial fear and vulnerability were replaced with a sense of safety and trust, cultivated through gentle handling and consistent care. Animals in distress often experience trauma, which can manifest in fear, aggression, or withdrawal. Rehabilitation provides a stable environment where they can heal emotionally, learning to trust humans again. The warm blankets, comforting touches, and quiet space offered to the puppy may seem small, but these elements were essential in making him feel secure enough to fight for his life. The puppy's transformation also underscores the ripple effects of rehabilitation. It doesn't just save lives, as it creates opportunities for brighter futures. Once weak and helpless, this puppy emerged as a lively, loving companion, ready to bring joy to a new family. This outcome wouldn't have been possible without the comprehensive care provided during his rehabilitation. His journey serves as a reminder that animals with severe medical or emotional needs are not beyond saving. They are, instead, waiting for someone to believe in their ability to heal and thrive. Rehabilitation also exemplifies the importance of community involvement in rescue efforts. From the rescuer's immediate actions to the veterinarian's expertise, every step required teamwork and dedication. Each person played a role in ensuring the puppy's survival and recovery, proving that collaboration is a cornerstone of successful rehabilitation. Moreover, the financial and emotional investments made by the rescuer, including purchasing medications and advocating for the puppy's care, highlight the sacrifices involved in these efforts. These sacrifices, however, are overshadowed by the joy and fulfillment of seeing an animal reclaim its life. Ultimately, rehabilitation is about restoring dignity and providing a second chance, regardless of the odds. This puppy's journey reminds us that every life is worth fighting for, no matter how bleak the circumstances may appear. His transformation from a suffering, tick-infested stray to a healthy, adoptable companion stands as a testament to the power of rehabilitation. It calls on us all to look beyond the immediate challenges and see the potential for recovery and happiness that lies within every animal in need. Through patience, effort, and compassion, rehabilitation can turn despair into hope and suffering into joy, proving that love and care truly have the power to heal. This puppy's journey from the streets to recovery is a powerful reminder of the impact of compassion and determination. He is not just a survivor, but a symbol of hope for countless other animals in need of help. Every life matters, and every act of kindness has the power to change the world for someone in need. Let this story inspire us to look out for those who cannot speak for themselves, offering them a chance to live, thrive, and be loved. This brave puppy's story is a testament to the power of compassion and the transformative impact of rehabilitation. From the heartbreaking sight of a helpless, fur-deprived puppy lying on a sidewalk to the joyful moment of him wagging his tail in anticipation of a new home, his journey is one of hope, resilience, and unwavering care. It's a powerful reminder that even the most vulnerable lives can flourish when given a chance. Every rescue is a call to action, a chance to step in and make a difference. While not everyone can physically rescue an animal, support comes in many forms: fostering, donating to shelters, advocating for animal rights, or simply spreading awareness. Together we can create more success stories like this one. As the puppy embarks on his next chapter with a loving family, his story serves as a beacon of hope for countless animals still waiting for their turn. Let this inspire us to see beyond the suffering and believe in the potential for recovery and love. Thank you for watching, and remember, every small act of kindness makes a big difference. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to join us in spreading stories of hope and compassion.